I'm glad to welcome Lea Jordan,
Thank you, Dirk.
techtalk.travel. Welcome,
Thank
Lea.
you. Welcome, everyone. Excited to be speaking about data now. Thank you, Christian, for your presentation and the impulse. I'd like to introduce our panelists to you. And as they're coming into our view, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Anthony Hunt, Vice President of Product and Strategy at Shiji Group. Hi, Anthony. Good to be with us. Thank you.
Hello.
And then we have James Adams, Chief Commercial Officer at Sixt. Hi, James. Thank you for joining us here today. Great to have you here. I suppose you followed the impulse from Christian, and I'd like to pose the first question to you, Anthony. What is your learning that you've taken away from the past year in terms of the role of data towards a frictionless travel? And what would you say? Would you have a first thought in response to this impulse from Christian you would like to add here?
It was great to hear from Christian, and I think the key words to digitize, harmonize, and collaborate are really key to how we move forwards in the hospitality industry, and how we can share data collaboratively in a secure manner where guests have given their consent. And over the last year, we have actually been working at Shiji to create an enterprise-level customer platform, which will be used by chains to run their organization. So I see great opportunities to be able to trade with data via the portfolio of APIs. So much has to change, I suppose, and we have to be ready to be flexible and adaptable to accommodate the new way of travel.
Right, thank you, Anthony. And James, what would you say? What are your learnings from a perspective of a mobility player, Sixt being one of the biggest players in our market? What are your learnings in terms of data?
Yeah, I think there's two sides to it. So, and I think both came up in the presentation from Christian. So there's the collaboration and sharing between verticals and also between companies. But there's also what operators need to do inside their own companies. The kind of phrase removing friction and removing customer touch was there. And that's been a really important thing for us. It was important before the pandemic, and it's got even more important since. I mean, just put yourself in a customer standpoint for our mobility products. As a customer right now, do you want to spend any more time than you have to going to a counter, in a car park, trying to get your share product off the street? No is the typical answer. And that means internally, we've been spending a lot of time on how do we use customer data to help solve those problems. Unlocking cars, or for example, if you've booked to pick up a car here, informing customers that there's a more convenient alternative near them that they can go to and spend less time out and get on board quicker and move on. And I think that topic is just going to grow and grow. So a lot of our big learnings have been around that area. And also on the other side, helping customers take decisions on their own. So it's great what we can do with customer data to let them have their identity recognized and get into a car, but we can also put it in their hands. So our subscription product that we launched gives flexibility back to customers to also take some more of their own decisions in this time, for example, when they return a car, if their circumstances change. I think making customers empowered to take decisions is an important part of this, as well as the more internal operational side of things.
James, we fully understand that customer data are pretty essential, maybe most essential ever, but we also know the gaps and the barriers for customer data, like GDPR, data protection, and so on. And of course, you're not the only player in the world. So how to connect customer data at its best? Or are you just in your Sixt bubble there when it's about personalization?
It's got to be both. I think most companies that I've ever come across have work to do in their own bubble and shouldn't be forgotten. But actually, we've got plenty of partners that we work with, either on the distribution side or on the supply side, and actually helping customers move smoothly between platforms and getting rid of friction there is a big important topic to us. And breaking down those silos, we've got a mixture of the tech and what do we actually use to pass information. And a big topic here is scalability. Some of the concepts that were mentioned earlier are great, but we've got to make sure that if everybody's designing to different standards and we have to do lots of different integrations with lots of different people, that can get tricky. And the other side is customer trust as well. So it's easy to look at it from a company standpoint of what barriers do I need to break down and work with my partners, but how do we keep customers trusting what we're doing and that it's in their good interest and that they get value from it? Because at the same time as getting rid of friction's got more important, everybody would have seen people are rightly more interested in who's handling my data, how, and can I trust them?
Sounds good, but how to do best? Question goes to Christian. Amadeus, you just invented your traveler ID, traveler identity as a next level of personalization. What can it bring, and is it really that open that everyone in the travel industry can participate in this?
Yes, indeed, because we have split the traveler ID into two different areas. One is what we call the traveler ID inside, where a travel player like an airline can plug this into their own application so that you don't come with a second app on your smartphone with a wallet. And the second one is what we call the Traveler ID Connect, where we more play the role of connecting the different touch points across the full journey. And this opened this up to any kind of identity which a person may hold. If you want to have an identity from provider A, and this is the one you have signed up already with, we can connect that one, and then you can use it at all the different touch points, and that really brings the value that you can use an identity for airlines, but also for hotels and rental cars. And maybe one word on the security and how it works together. So we don't necessarily need to have all the data flowing through all of the systems in the full data set. We need to define which data is needed where, and only transfer and share this data by the consent of the customer so that a minimum set of data is being shared. For example, in the airline boarding processes, we don't share with the airlines your full test result or vaccination certificate. We only share that one has been checked against the country regulations and that you're fit to fly, and this flag is being used to block or unblock boarding. And the same could be used for a hotel check-in if a hotel requires for a guest to have a negative test result. And the sharing then becomes more important if you think of use cases like a disruption, where something goes wrong with the flight. The hotel and the rental car company needs to be informed as well. And by data sharing, as the consent of the traveler, this can make really a better traveler experience to the benefit of all travel players.
Sounds good and fair. Thank you, Christian. But let's do a COVID-19 crash test. Gentlemen, what is most important now to do in terms of collaboration to really start a seamless travel experience again? And next question goes to Anthony. First question to you. Are you willing to share your customer data from your systems, or are your customers willing to share their customer data in a traveler ID platform? And secondly, what is most important in your point of view to get a more frictionless travel experience?
Yeah, I guess at Shiji, with the data, we manage the customer's data, but the owner of the data is the customer itself. So if somebody at the Peninsula Group chooses to share that data, we handle that through consent management. So if particular consents have been ticked for various partners, or we have connected to partners at the request of the customer and created integration through a variety of APIs, whether that's to our transport module layer for flight arrival and departure time, or to our task management solution for car hire and other items. All of that can be enabled and can be managed securely through our different sort of data vaults in a variety of AWS locations around the world. So yes, we can secure it, we can manage on behalf of the clients, the hoteliers, that data which they wish to share. And I think to the second part of the question, in the increased availability of mobile solutions, what Christian mentioned to enhance the mobile apps from the major account hotels to have extended elements such as the health check preparation. I think this will be important in the recovery period of COVID. And, as James was saying, the more you digitize, the less touch there is. It seems a little incongruous in hospitality that we don't want to touch anyone anymore. But we will have to drive through some mechanism of delivering hospitality with smiles and no touching. I think that is maybe the focus for this year and through to next year is to have a mobile version of everything on the guest device, removing all of the touch points. And there are quite a few barriers to break down. These integrations generally, they don't exist, and they haven't existed historically. So we have to work collaboratively to create something new and to encourage clients back into the hospitality, airline and travel industry. I think they will be a little bit afraid, but also excited that they can, travel once again. This is what we hope for.
Yes, thank you, Anthony, for that point. And I love the aspect that you added to focus on excitement, because we talk about a safe travel journey, right? But it also has to be a better travel journey. And isn't it that the customers' expectations have risen even more through the crisis? And isn't that also a great opportunity for personalization throughout a better leveraging the data that we have available? And James, you mentioned that with Sixt, you said put the customer back into control. Where do you see the most important action points? Where do you see they are lacking control right now?
Yeah, I think, you got to. I think the point was made actually quite well by Anthony that we're managing our customers' data. In the end, it's our customers' data. We need to do the right thing with it. And I think there's an increasing set of awareness raised by both regulators and consumers about what actually is happening with my data, and particularly where is it being passed to third parties and where is it not. And I think in terms of giving customers control of their data, there's making it very clear to them how it's being used, and having the internal discipline of making sure that everything is, you talk about customer data. How can I use a customer's data to make their experience better and make sure they're happy and clear that I'm doing it? And that's where I think the control is important. And it's starting from, we kind of talk about privacy by design, but rightly so, that should be part of all of our data set. I would also include customer benefit or frictionless by design. The two need to go hand in hand. Why am I taking this data? Is the customer aware of it? And am I genuinely providing value? Because with value comes trust and excitement. And we strive for customer excitement at Sixt as a company, and that's what I think is going to help bring travel back, is trust and excitement. And we all have a role in making that work, making that happen, and working more smoothly across either partnerships or verticals, so customers don't get caught in between platforms, in between countries is another topic, and regulations. How can we make it easier and more exciting at the same time?
Before we move on to the hopefully powerful and sustainable future of travel technology without COVID, let's jump back to COVID-19 times as we are in, and let's talk about the health passes. Christian told their vision, or it's probably more than a vision, about digital health passes within the customer journey. We learned about that there are several systems and applications are on the market or coming onto the market. We know that there is challenges on the governmental side to establish these health passes, more or less in decent part of the world. But how to implement health data best into your systems, both to Anthony first and then to James. How to integrate health data in your applications. Anthony.
Yeah, I can't say it's something I've really thought about, integrating that into the hotel level application. I think it's great what Christian showed, that it allows a traveller to get in to the country. If you are within a country, then hopefully you're in a fit state. the reservation creation process, which may be managed by an Amadeus system, for example, or any other system, I guess it could interpret this digital health pass if it was made available as part of the reservation journey. And that would at least offer some sort of, we normally say the reservation is guaranteed by a credit card or is guaranteed by a deposit. We may look to modify that guarantee type element to include a digital health pass. So depending on the specification of this, I think it was the IBM travel pass or the IATA travel pass, it would be consumable to us in our reservation message. Maybe we modify that slightly. But it is an additional step to digitizing the arrival booking, the arrival and the booking process. Slightly even more complicated that we would need to receive it possibly, again, 72 hours prior to arrival. So not something we're working on. Yes, it's technically possible. We have endpoints that could handle an additional data element. If the hotel companies wanted to go down that path, then we would respond accordingly in making modifications to existing integrations with a Synixis or whatever travel portal the hotels are using, maybe sometimes their own brand as well.
James, how about Sixt? How to get health data into the customer journey, into your systems? Are you on your way?
Yeah, so I actually think it depends for us much more on what happens in the local countries and what's the need for that. Because for me, the big thing for unlocking travel right now is ability for people to move between either countries or zones of countries. So I guess if we've got cross-border travel, then maybe that's a topic for us, and integrating it in our systems could make sense there. But by and large, I actually think it comes down to what provision do we need to make for people to have been tested or have been immunised or not to actually use our vehicles, because we actually have some options, because obviously we've got vehicles that can be completely entered without anybody touching them and can be sanitised and can be held for a period of time. Obviously, if we have any COVID cases reported, we have to hold our vehicles for a certain period of time to make sure they're clean. So it's not necessarily the case that we have to, the use of health data we have to be a bit careful with, depending on what local legislation is, and not screening out customers. So, but in a direct answer to the question, yes, that kind of data is integratable and can be used, brought into our app or into our systems if we need to.
Okay, thank you. So after all, Christian, when we remember your presentation, it was quite a lot you presented us in this 15 minutes. I would call it a new kind of customer journey you presented. The question to you, all these forms of Hannah, or the young lady we saw going from post-travel to pre-travel, what will remain from these applications when the pandemic is hopefully over soon? And what will remain, and what can be killed in this?
So no one can tell when the pandemic is over, hopefully soon. But what I am certain of is that we have to deal with digital vaccination certificates and with digital test results for quite a while. But we also have to deal with paper vaccination certificates and paper test results for a while. And I'm certain that these kind of proof of a fit to travel or okay to travel will remain in one form or the other. I cannot make any prediction of how the countries are going to change their regulations, but for the time being, we see that a vaccination certificate is a prerequisite to travel, and I can imagine that that's going to be there to stay. Also, that digital identity management and the consent management, that the traveler can consent where to share data and what kind of data, is a concept which I believe will be more and more adapted. And it links back to the discussion which we had before, does everyone store customer data, or is there a way to share this data by the consent of the traveler for certain use cases? And when I give one example, a test result with a QR code, the QR code is sharing data. I mean, the data is printed on paper, but in the end, it's readable, it's digital. So you share data every time you present your test result, and you share the full data of the test result, including the time taken, your name, and what is behind it. It might be pulled from a backend, but it's still the data which is shared. And for a travel, we don't need to share all the time the full data set of a test result. We may only need to check it once and say, okay, we're fine to travel, okay to travel during the journey. So I believe, coming back to your question, we're going to see some kind of checks on your fit to travel also in the future. And I believe that an identity management with consent by the traveler is a concept to stay.
Right, thank you, Christian. And if we go back to the topic of trust, right? The customer needs to have the feeling he can trust to share his data, and ultimately it's also a big factor of the satisfaction of his entire trip. So where do we get to know the customer best? Where does he spend most time of his stay? And if we look back in history, it was already a challenge to collect data from all these various systems where a customer interacts on his journey, right? So we have many standalone solutions that are connected to legacy systems or other systems. And if I only look at the vertical of hospitality, I do know that's a challenge already. So for our audience, Anthony, what is your vision? How do we achieve this state of a seamless travel experience where we do know what our customer wants and does, and where he has been last and where he's going next?
So at Shiji, we spent the last 5 years developing an enterprise solution for hotel chains and groups, which essentially is a cloud-based enterprise build of an organization. At the heart of this is a single object representing the guest, a company or a travel agent, which is shared many hundreds or thousands of times between the connected properties, or spa resorts, or golf resorts, or other sort of food and beverage membership programs representing the Shiji products. This we see as a way of from the hotel perspective, or the hotelier's perspective, is a single global view, which in time, is extensible to other verticals in the industry, such as the travel, etc. So we can trade any necessary elements around the guest who has agreed to share that data. Again, going back to the consent management side of things. So as a guest stays and consumes and spends, and as we learn about their preferences, we are able to make actions for the next reservation, representing the experiences that he enjoyed or commented upon. We can take in the social media feedback from ReviewPro based on post-satisfaction surveys or online chats that have taken place representing that stay. And again, back in the central global profile, update preferences, or sort of what we call tasks to be executed for future reservations. With connectivity to any booked travel on the hotel side, we will know where the guest has been within this organization and where he's going next within this organization. And to the extent that we have any extended travel information using the sort of our transport function, we would be aware of any flight data that had been shared with us. And that's where we are right now. And it's really only a part of the way that we need to go over the next 5 to 10 years to be truly frictionless. We do have to agree to collaborate more and be more open, as long as the guest is willing to do so. So if we can comply, and we do comply to GDPR and privacy laws, that the guest does feel more secure with us, hopefully they will consent to share more and more of their data elements, as long as they get a benefit. And I guess that benefit is the removal of friction. I think that's how I see things just now.
Right. So if we have the willingness to share the data and we have the players that say, yes, let's collaborate, then this still has to be technical feasible, right? What role are playing APIs here? And me as a non-data expert, if I hear about new players coming into the market promising with their open API structures, they're allowing everyone to just share data in and out and take it out and dock to their system. What is your take on that, Christian?
Yeah, I believe that that's not the thing which should happen, that everyone is allowed to take out data from each of the data sources. So I believe more each travel provider will have its kind of customer database where you have your view on your customer, but with the friction which can be removed for the point of, like, say, the example of the disruption use case, for the time of the traveler, sharing data from one data source to the next one, and therefore from one travel provider to the next one, is the vision I would like to see, because that would then be the consent of the traveler and not a sharing between the different travel providers only for this certain period of time. And think of if that is integrated in an airline app, for example, where you have checked in, provided your test data, but then can consent that this test data or proof of okay to travel would be provided to the other travel providers in your journey, like the hotel and the rental car. That would be an easy thing for the traveler and an incentive to do so. And the same thing could be integrated in a hotel application. So if that's the preferred choice of the traveler, you could also say, okay, I consent there to use my picture for the biometric boarding of the airline and for the biometric check-in in the hotel. So I don't believe that an open infrastructure where everyone could be shared without the consent of the traveler is something which we should go for.
Right. Gentlemen, we really love your pragmatism and your honesty when it's about the future of travel technology. So if we get you right, it's not about sharing everything with everyone. It's not about getting truly frictionless, as you said, Anthony. But if we just think ourselves into an ITB 21 without COVID-19, we probably will talk about new forms of customer relations. We will talk about super apps, new customer touchpoints. We will probably talk about the dominance of Google and other big players, and so on. And anyhow, I feel there is also a link to our frictionless travel topic. What to do to really to challenge with the dominant player like Google, like Apple, like Facebook, like WeChat, and what can collaboration and bring to get a better position on the point of sale, wherever the point of sale is. James, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, I think collaboration is probably the key word. Having sat on both the OTA side of the fence in previous job and on the Sixt side now, I think in the past there's been a bit of a tendency for companies to think quite a bit about what's my ecosystem, how am I building a unique competitive advantage in my ecosystem by giving something better to customers. And I don't think that's wrong, but I think that Corona has been a bit of a wake-up call that to get travel restarted, we do need to get collaboration working a bit better. So I think you're right, there are some very large players out there who are well connected across lots of different pieces. I think for the travel companies, maybe moving slightly away from that position of my own ecosystem focus to what information can I positively share outside my ecosystem where the net customer benefit is going to be greater, and I and my partners are going to win because the customer wins. I think it takes a little bit of a mindset shift, and then certainly some development and integration and common standards, which we've heard a bit about before, to make it work both smoothly, but also in a manageable way, because I mentioned it before, if we have a huge variety of different standards and everybody says, hey, this is my ecosystem, it's got to be this standard, the development possibilities just don't work out in terms of the scalability of the solution. So I think mindset and then tech needs to follow as well.
Anthony, any opinion on this? What's the best to do in collaboration to get in touch to the customer in a post-COVID world coming soon, hopefully?
Well, as the sort of software development house, we really stand by what the customer wants to do and to make solutions available to them. So I don't really have a view on that. We are ready to offer our enterprise platform to enable, services to customers. But I don't have a specific view on that question, no.
Even this is honest and fair, good to know. If we challenge this back to Amadeus, open for collaboration, same as IATA, as a big airline industry and association, open for collaboration, widely opened, which is, so to say, truly new standpoint for this part of the industry. So the airline industry is really open. On the other hand, we have established standards. We also have new standards in every industry, like NDC in airline, like Hotrack data in hoteliers, like Open Travel Alliance and tour operating systems, and so on. So how to bring all these standards together? Or is there even a chance to bring all this together? Or will we forever have a friction travel tech landscape? Question to all of you guys. Christian may start.
There's absolutely a chance to make that happen. Amadeus has always been a company trying to connect different players in the industry and connecting the dots. Now we have a new field which hasn't been there before, which is the health status and the indication of this health status. There certainly needs to be more either standardization or at least the standardization of the data exchange. So as you see with the European Union and the vaccination certificates, every country will go with its own provider, but there is a standard how to interchange this data. And this is something where we need to work on in the travel industry, that the sharing of data becomes a kind of more standardized, more harmonized, and then we don't need to have all of the different travel players being on the same technology stack, because that, I don't believe, is going to happen. But sharing of the data in a more standardized way, that is absolutely in the reach that we can make it happen.
James, Anthony, how do you think? Is there any chance to get a kind of meta-ontology or whatever that really unites all these dozens of standards, of business rules, of schemes that we have in the global travel industry? Or will it be a little bit with frictions even in the future?
James, do you want to go or shall I go first?
Be my guest.
I think it is possible. I think if we're willing, there is a way. If I look at the transformation of the payment industry and that move towards digital methods of payment, and how people were able to aggregate on a common set of messaging. It's a very small, discrete amount of data that we need to agree on an API specification for 2 or 3 new items, and perhaps bind them to the HTMG standard, and we do an addendum, but I do believe it is possible, and very, very doable.
James, what's your opinion?
I would agree with that. It entirely depends on how you define the problem. To try and integrate all the different things you mentioned, I don't think is a realistic goal, but I also don't think it's the goal we need to achieve. I kind of come back to my earlier point on where's the value for the customer. And Anthony, I think you're right. There's actually take the first smaller steps. There's probably relatively easy to define and smaller set of information that we need to exchange. And that's where I think the focus needs to go to get standardization. I agree with that. That should be a realistic target. You can then maybe build more, but I wouldn't start with the overall target of system alignment and integration.
Right. Given that we have 3 verticals represented here, or even more, we have aviation, hospitality, we have mobility. To me, personally, that sounds like a huge team-building exercise for the time to come in terms of collaboration, agreement on standards, and harmonization. Dirk, our time is running. Shall we close the round with a last statement, or what's your thought?
I think we have to. I mean, I'm pretty curious, gentlemen, and that's what Lea said. You're from different verticals. So when you have a wish for free, in terms of collaboration, on which door are you knocking? Which vertical do you want to do you want to connect better than now? James.
From a travel standpoint, airline is probably the one that is most relevant for us if you think about where a lot of our customers will come from directly before they pick up a car. So that'd be mine.
Anthony?
I would follow James as well and align with the airline as that sort of first in sequence. As we have to adapt to possibly the extension of travel restrictions, they are the holder of the key because they've already got the pre-clearance.
Christian, anyone you want to work more closely with?
I think I'd like to be neutral there, but what we definitely see that the airlines have higher automated processes than hotels, and there I think is a very good opportunity to get this automation also increased for the benefit and for the traveler and the reduction of the friction.
Right.
Christian Warneck, Anthony Hunt, James Adams, it was a pleasure to have you here in our really frictionless virtual data panel. Thank you so much.
And to everyone in the audience, make sure to head to the ITB cafes and exchange with like-minded peers about this topic. And bear with us, data is an exciting topic if you look at the opportunities coming up. So here's to a more frictionless and safe and better travel experience.
And we both will do the same.
Yes.
For the next 2 hours,
we
3
will.
hours.
Yes.
It was a pleasure. Lea Jordan, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dirk.
And we see us later on. I'm excited to have home to go and in a one-on-one interview at 6 o'clock in the evening. And enjoy the day, enjoy ITB. It was a pleasure to see you all. See you later. Bye-bye.